It's hard to believe how far modern technology has come. How we used to build things in the past is nothing compared to what we are able to achieve now. But there are some things that were built long ago that even by today's comparisons were successful and genius ideas. Take a walk with us and see an old World War I road twist up the side of a mountain cut from the very rock, and travel to roads so dangerous that even walking on them are forbidden. Strada della 52 Gallery. The Strada della 52 Gallery, which is also known as the Road of 52 Tunnel, was an engineering marvel especially for its time that was built by the Kingdom of Italy. This road winds between Boschetta Campiglia and the Porta del Pasubio and crosses the southern slope of the mountain with its deep canyons and sheer rock faces. It was strategically built outside of the range of Austro-Hungarian artillery, and its implementation was of great strategic importance because it allowed communication and transfer of supplies by mule from the base to the summit area of Mount Pasubio. It was called a masterpiece of military engineering and boldness, taking into consideration the conditions and the era it was built in. In fact, the speed it was built in is remarkable. Work began on February 6, 1917, and it was completed that same year in November. The road had to include year-round access, located outside the range of enemy artillery, and had to be accessible by mule. These were all problems of the similar road of Scarubi, which could only be accessed by motor vehicles. Those responsible for its construction were the 33rd Miners Company from the Italian Army, along with 600 additional laborers. That's pretty impressive considering that it's 21,506 feet long, with 7,480 feet divided into 52 tunnels which are excavated from solid rock. Each one of the tunnels is unique and have a name and number. Tunnel 20 is carved out of a tower of rock, and to overcome the difference in height, the small road twists around itself like a corkscrew. And on leaving the 47th tunnel, which is the highest part of the road, there's a breathtaking panoramic view where you can see the winding road that makes its way up the side of the mountain. It might seem like a great place to travel to and check out, but it's also listed as one of the most dangerous roads in the world, and even mountain biking here is prohibited due to the number of fatal accidents. Hiking is allowed though, and making your way through the old, dark, and creepy tunnels is a surreal experience. Old Plank Road. The story of how this road was built is actually an interesting one to be sure. In California in 1915, someone got the idea of building a road using wooden planks. It sounds a bit crazy by today's standards, but it actually worked. Los Angeles just won the right to be an eastern terminus of the Transcontinental Railroad, and San Diego's civic leadership proposed this plank road to ensure the city became the hub of Southern California's road network, instead of Los Angeles. Among the promoters was road builder named Colonel Ed Fletcher, who accepted a challenge to run a road race with a reporter from the Los Angeles Examiner. The idea of the no-road race was to determine the best route between Southern California and Phoenix. The reporter with the paper got a 24-hour head start in Los Angeles, and Fletcher would leave from San Diego. Fletcher elected to traverse the shifting sand dunes and using a team of horses to pull his car through the sand. He ended up winning the race in 19.5 hours, which at the time was seemingly impossible. Because of his success, by winning the race, Fletcher raised enough money to buy 13,000 wood planks, which were shipped from San Diego to Holtville, California. The road was made up of 8-foot wide by 12-foot long sections, weighing 1,500 pounds, and were each held in place by iron bars bolted to the ties. It was kind of a railroad track for cars. The total length of the plank road was 6.5 miles long, and it only took a little less than 2 months to build it. It went across the Algodón sand dunes, located in the middle of one of the hottest places on Earth, the arid desert of the Imperial Valley. It was a nearly impossible barrier to cross. The road was a success, but maintenance crews with mule-drawn scrapers did damage to the wooden planks, keeping them clear of sand. The road actually only lasted a year, and despite this, it was adopted by the California State Highway Commission. Some of this plank road still exists, and you can find it on Gray Wells Road near Winter Haven, California. Grands Goulets Road. The Les Grands Goulets in France is a legendary stretch of road that was built between 1843 and 1854 and is carved out of the cliffs of Vercors Massif, which consists of rugged plateau and mountains. In the early 19th century, there were no passable roads for horse-drawn vehicles, and the residents living in Vercors were feeling isolated from the rest of the world. So it was decided to build a road that would connect Vercors to the south. It would be a mind-boggling investment of manpower, time, and money. Even with today's technology, the construction of such a road is inconceivable. The methods used to build the road were perilous and involved hanging down the side of the mountain on a rope ladder and throwing dynamite into the rock and swinging out of the way just in time to avoid the blast. 10 years after construction began, the road was finally ready. The space between the two mountains is unnerving at some points. Oncoming cars here can be very dangerous, as there is not enough road to pass. Often higher up the gorge, the road has no guardrails to stop a car from plummeting over the edge and down the sheer mountain face. This road was cut into a cliff, and some places the sun never shines and the rock is mossy and wet. After 156 years of leading travelers through the mountains with its winding and narrow road, the French government was forced to permanently close the historic road because of a series of fatal accidents. Not even cyclists or hikers are allowed to venture its long and winding route. The scenic ghost road is now bypassed by a tunnel and sits abandoned and untraveled. Stelvio Pass in Italy. Some have called it the world's greatest road. Of course, that depends on who you ask. Stelvio Pass is said to be one of the best driving roads in Europe, but at the same time, it's one of the most dangerous roads. The road sits at 9,045 feet above sea level and is a mountain pass in northern Italy bordering Switzerland. It is the highest paved mountain pass in the Eastern Alps. The road was originally built in 1820 to 1825, almost 200 years ago, by the Austrian Empire as a strategic military move. It connects the former Austrian province of Lombardy with the rest of Austria. During the World War I, it was a combat zone where many troops lost their lives due to either combat or avalanches or the bitter cold. After the war, both sides of the pass became Italian, and the road lost its main task to connect Austria with Milan, Italy. If you start at the bottom, it covers a climb of 1.6 miles. Since then, the route has changed very little, and many people visit it each year and try to climb it either by car, motorcycle, or bike. The road has an astounding 48 hairpin turns. Trans-Siberian Highway. This highway isn't the oldest highway, but it sure is spooky long. It was also built by Gulag inmates and can vary from pristine motorway to badly paved and even dirt roads in the east. It stretches over 6,800 miles and runs from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok. Due to its unique location and the fact it passes through some very remote areas, you can run into some of the toughest terrains around. And if it's a challenge that you're after, then driving this entire stretch of highway should be at the top of your list. Today, most of the highway is paved and some of the drive is uneventful. But there are some sections of the road that are deeply foreboding and dangerous. Many parts of the highway are in terrible condition because it's impossible for the government to maintain it. But if you still want to try it, come prepared for the worst and never travel it alone. And make sure you have a good, reliable vehicle. It has a well-deserved reputation for being dangerous due to unpredictable snowstorms and blizzards. Chinese are moving mountains. It's possible that back in the old days, if you wanted to build something and there was, let's say, a mountain in the way, you'd have to change your plans. But not in today's modern world, and certainly not in China. There's a place there called Lanzhou New Area, which had 700 small hills and mountains that equaled 500 square miles of land. Construction firms have spent $3.9 billion to remove the hills and the mountains that were in the way, and is still one of the biggest projects of its time. Once the mountains were gone, the developers built a mega city complete with thousands of high-rise apartments and several other stores and shops, and the main drag that was lined with nothing but banks. The interesting thing is that getting rid of those mountains has been an obsession of local government officials and developers in Lanzhou since the early 90s. At the time, the area was being primed to be a major hub of the Silk Road economic belt. But some of these long, winding roads are nearly eerily empty and untraveled. And while it was one of the biggest projects of its type, the city has remained a ghost town and houses far less than the 1 million people it was supposed to attract. However, lately it is said people are finally moving in here, and there are claims that this new district will generate an annual output of $45 billion by the year 2030. Just imagine removing mountains and building cities in its place. It's a bit mind-blowing considering all the open space we have. What do you think? We hope you enjoyed the video. Have you ever driven on a spooky old road before? If you liked the video, then click subscribe and turn on the notifications so you'll be the first to know when a new video arrives. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.